next, before we get into all the stuff we've been watching and reading and doing all week, we got a chance to review a new book upcoming from Dark Horse. It is going to be Neil Gaiman's Anansi Boys is getting an adaptation in comic book form. This is a comic from Dark Horse coming out next week, but we got a chance to read it, so we're going to talk a little bit about it, tell you guys, how we felt about it. This is, of course, story and words by Neil Gaiman because it's based on his original book. This is a script by Marc Bernardin of Batman Beyond fame and many other things. With art by Sean Martinborough and colors by Christopher Sotomayor, letters by Jim Campbell. Now, I wasn't very familiar with Martinborough's art, but I think it really works here.
It's really good. Yeah.
And of course, this beautiful cover by David Mack, because once again, David Mack just let him do all the covers.
Exactly, he's so good.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. So before we get into it, I was talking to Josh before we started, because I told him I wanted to do a little bit of research, as a comics journalist that I am. So the original book was published in 2005. And I also wanted to just do a quick Google as to what Anansi. I was not familiar with the term Anansi.
Is this the book?
All. Yeah, there's the book. Clay has it. So Anansi is Anansi the spider is a popular figure in the folklore of parts of West Africa. Anansi is a trickster figure, clever, cunning, sometimes mischievous, who uses his wits to make up for what he lacks in size and strength. And their stories mainly talk about how he becomes eventually the owner of all stories, so the god of stories. So Loki, you got some competition there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I looked into was what are Anansi stories, because this is a little bit of what's kind of it's how this book is kind of made up of, these folk tales. So these stories began in Ghana many years ago, and they are spread by oral tradition when Africans were brought as slaves to the Americas and the Caribbean in the early 1500s. So there's your history moment. Don't say I never read anything for you guys. So I'm gonna start with Josh. What did you think of this book?
I loved it. I was saying before the show, this is one of the few of his novels I've not read. So I kind of went into it completely cold, and I feel like so much of his stuff has been adapted for comics that began as like short stories, novels. I thought this was an absolutely great opening. I have no idea where the story goes, but just the way that this structures the opening kind of immediately grabs you and kind of brings you in and compels you to keep reading is great. I thought the little flashbacks and snippets we get of his dad are amazing. I don't want to spoil anything. I genuinely, and I think this is really hard for a comic to do because it's not dialogue. I genuinely laughed out loud when he was at the wrong funeral. Like I just the way that it was structured and paced was just so well done that when I turned the page and you think the person that he knows walking up is coming to the funeral, and she's like, "You're at the wrong funeral," and I just burst out laughing. I was like, "Oh shit, this is so bad." It was great. It was really good. The art is good. The writing, the dialogue is good. So. Yeah.
Before we go to Clay and Jeff, I forget to go over the synopsis, which Josh talking about it. I was like, maybe I should have talked about the synopsis.
Yeah, sorry.
This book follows Fat Charlie Nancy. What a nickname.
Yeah.
Who leads a boring life as a boring Londoner until he discovers two things: that his recently deceased father was in fact Anansi the spider, the trickster god of African folklore, and that he has a twin brother that he's never met, which kicks off a reality-spanning odyssey of sibling rivalry, jealous deities, and one poor soul who realized that he's meant to be a god. So I didn't read any of that. Like I said, I also went into this cold. But let's go with Jeff. Were you familiar with any of this stuff? What did you think of the book?
Yeah, I've never read the book, so I was also off not expecting anything, going into it blind. Really enjoyed the comic to the point where I did want to go back and read the book uh, more than
But but
almost
you're
as much as I wanted to, because the comic hooked me so much that I
yeah.
Yeah,
was just like, I kind of want to keep reading the comic, but also I just kind of want to read the book, honestly.
Yeah.
yeah, same.
So
Same.
I was like, it's a weird thing to be like, oh, I really, uh, I go read this comic, but also, I don't know, pick up the book, also read both of them. The artwork is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Oh, I
It is
love it.
very funny, just like Josh said,
And
and it,
and
and
now
it
that I
really
have
does
the
hook you.
context, now that I have the context of the spider of it all, I'm going back and seeing some of these pages, and I'm like, oh, I'm a dummy. I didn't even put that together.
Same, same. Not just you, man. Because, like, I'm actually kind of surprised that synopsis they provide. I feel like ruins a lot of the first issue
Yeah,
and
yeah.
subsequent issues. I would be like, go into it totally cold, like have no idea what you're getting into.
We need a
Um,
like and comment here before. All right, Clay, what about you? What did you think of the book?
Yeah, I went in blind and totally enjoyed it because I didn't know which way it was going to go. But Mark and Neil Gaiman, I mean, the names associated with it, it's going to be good, and it just has this just really great dialogue that Neil Gaiman always does of this couple, where she's trying to convince him about his dad, and he is just telling these heartbreaking stories of just what a terrible dad he was. That's the hard part for me because I don't understand why the necessity for his dad to be there at the wedding, other than her want for it. Because as somebody who did grow up like similar to this guy with his dad, like I wouldn't invite my dad to anything. Like I wouldn't run to his funeral. I'd schedule a podcast. I would do anything but go to that. So that's the hard part for me to accept, is that this guy is it, but maybe he's pursuing that closure.
Yeah, I think she realizes that he will eventually regret not having his dad at the wedding.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's obviously as his fiance, she probably knows him a lot better. So like that's maybe something we haven't really seen in the character. But just the fact that he did get on a plane to jump to go to his funeral does
yeah,
say that there's still a bond there from him, that even if he wants to cast it aside for his everyday life, like it the emotional attachment is still there. I feel like, and this is slight spoilers for the first issue. It's a very brief spoiler. When he talks about the story of his mom passing, I think he's sort of grateful that his he kind of gave her those extra years
yeah.
afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Which, what a bombastic scene of the dad showing up in the hospital
Oh,
with a
God, it's
full on
great.
marching band.
Yeah,
Um, I was just like, how did this work? That was one of the clues I was telling Josh, because we were talking about it before you guys jumped on. I saw that that there was something special about the dad. I could tell because of the art. Like Marvel
yes,
actually does a really good job of like I was like, is he not aging? Because he's kind of staying the same all throughout the flashbacks. But I'm like, is that just I think as a when you think back on your parents, and luckily both my parents are still with me, um, but like you kind of picture them as they are, right? Like I feel like when you think of people that are not around any longer, I feel like you picture them as the thing, like that version of them you remember. So I thought that was just what was happening here, and
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
that was not the case, as we found out. So yeah, I think this book is very well done. I was also very excited to like getting it's rare that I read a number one and I'm like, dang, I need the second one like
yeah,
Yeah.
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
The ending is such a hook.
Yeah.
It is.
So all right, any other thoughts from you guys on this book? Okay.
We're good.
I did reach out to I went on Blue Sky, because if you want to talk to comic creators, that's sometimes where you have to go. And I messaged Marc Bernardin asking him, oh crap, I just closed the link. So I'm gonna put a link in the description of this video, and then also when we break it out into an individual video, about an interview that he did, because I asked him how it was adapting an existing property, which I'm guessing he's a fan of course. So yeah, you can read all about it there. So he replied with that link. So I think he would be one of the most fun people to like kind of get to talk to. So I'm gonna try to reach out to Dark Horse and see if they
Yeah.
can hook us up because I think he'd be great. But he is a busy person. So all right. Well, make sure to pick up Anansi boys. Let me show you some really cool covers to kind of wrap this part up. But so and then David Mack, I can see the spider now.
Yeah.
Like I see it now. So yeah, these are great. I love these.